wants to speak, a public comment, the sign-in sheet is over there. I think it's a lot of you there. You're good, Renee. Call the meeting to order. If we could all rise, say the pledge of allegiance together. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could have a moment of silence for two reasons. One for a town resident, Alicia Hall, who passed away on Sunday, April 2nd. And secondly, this is April is Child Abuse Awareness Month. It's an issue near and dear to my heart, and I think if we could all take a moment to a silence for not only Alicia, but for all those children who are in devastating situations. Thank you. Given how our meeting went last month, I think it's a good time for us to review our rules of procedure for how we conduct ourselves at town board meetings. The rules are on the website, and I gave each board member a copy of them. But they are intended to be basic standards for how we conduct ourselves. And they are to help us ensure that we get town business done in an orderly fashion. So I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the rules that really do relate to town board meetings. The supervisor presides over the meetings and preserves order and decorum. No one speaks twice until everyone has had a chance to speak once. All remarks must be directed to the chair. That is me, but I extend that to the board. They must be courteous in language and deportment and should avoid personal comments, not questioning a board member's motives. As far as procedure goes, we start with town business. So that's what the agenda is. It's town business. If we have a public hearing on a particular matter, that would be overseen again by the supervisor to ensure that everybody gets a chance to be heard, instructing people on how to address the board with their names, their addresses, and their organizations. Having people speak no longer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes should be enough time to be able to say what you want to say. During public comment, which is different than a public hearing, the public is allowed to speak in a general comment period about issues of town business. And the town supervisor can limit the length of time any one given person can speak. Anyone speaking in public comment addresses their comments to the town board up here. We don't preach to the audience. It's that's part of the rules of decorum. And comments must be related, again, I said, to town business. I don't know if I think any of the rest of these, most of these are related to making motions and amendments, and that's not really the matter that was an issue last month. I think that's it, but the rules are on the website. You can read them. I expect anyone that is here to follow the rules. And if you don't, there will be consequences. And that's not being tough. That's just being respectful to a process that we have employed to make sure that we have an orderly meeting. And I was debating on whether or not I should say anything about this, but I was so appalled last month about the copier issue and that a town staff person behaved in that manner that I want to apologize to those of you who were here and those of you who were watching on Zoom on behalf of the town. That was completely unacceptable. And I've written an email to the judge, but I haven't been able to send it yet because it's not ready. You know what I mean? So I have to wait until times prevail. Okay, so that was just a little bit of house rules. I hope you all understand, and I think most of you know how to comport yourselves. So the first thing on the agenda is the accountant's report, except for our accountant is unable to be here tonight. He did give us a monthly statement of the supervisor, which details the receipts that we've taken in. Town clerk fees of almost $1,600. Good job, Nikki. We also got a quarterly franchise fee of almost $20,000. Developers' fees have come in. We are really making some money on interest right now, and so we'll take it because we've had some very lean years. We had some justice court fines come in, some sale of scrap metal, and the rent that the town of Fabius gives us for some our space. We share an assessor, so their records are kept here, so they pay us a rent every year. And some fuel reimbursement from the Pompey Hill Fire Department. That's about the extent of the receipts. The disbursements are pretty typical monthly expenses, nothing out of the ordinary. So I would ask for a motion to accept the monthly.
I'll make a motion to accept the supervisor's monthly report for March.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye, opposed, motion carried. We did get our first bank reconciliation of the year finally for January, because we've been trying to get our new software system up and running, and it's been taken a little bit longer than we thought. So we do have January's reconciliation. Has everybody had a chance to review that? And this is the reconciliation for the supervisor. So I would entertain a motion to accept that.
Make motion to accept report.
Reconciliation report.
Reconciliation report for supervisor, yes.
Second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We should also say welcome back to Ann Christmas. I want to sit next to her, very pale. And then Nikki, everybody has had a chance to look at both the tax collector and the clerk's reports, reconciliation reports for this for March.
I'll make a motion to accept the town clerk and the bank reconciliation. Let's do the monthly notes.
Second it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed. Motion carried. Okay. The next thing on the agenda, and I think all of you who have a copy of it know that there's not going to be any presentation from the developer tonight. They are still working with our town engineer on a stormwater pollution prevention plan that's acceptable to the town engineer. So, but we do need to make the formal referral of this project to the Environmental Conservation Commission, and we have not done that in the last two meetings. And they have already got the documentation, they're already reviewing it, but formally they would like us to make that referral. So I would move to refer this matter to the ECC for their feedback and recommendation.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The other thing relating to the Frank Long Road solar project is the matter of a site visit. And I think that that's something that the board needs to consider. In terms of full disclosure, I will say, and some of you know this, that I met Enville virtually with a representative from Seaboard and the owners of the property last Thursday, I think, and at their request, one of the items on that their agenda was the matter of a site visit. They are planning, the developers, to do something, a similar open house type of thing that Pivot did recently. For anybody, they're not sure how they're going to do it. It might be different, but they would like for people to have the opportunity to meet with them personally and ask questions. So that's something they're working on, but we also talked about a site visit and the problems with this particular access to this particular site because of this, the narrowness of Frank Long Road, trying to have people park. The fact that this is a sloped property, that it's wet. Although I think things are drying out pretty fast with this wind and warm weather. So I think there was some concerns that the public, it would not be a good idea to have the public participate in a walkthrough, but that the board or any town officials that needed to would have to do it, and we do it piecemeal to see the site. And it's also along a narrow site, so you'd have to walk in and it's all full of those buckthorn trees that are all over my woods. Is that what they're called? Yeah. So it's not a very accessible, easy property to walk on.
What a brush.
Yeah. So, I'm just wondering what the board's thoughts are on trying to do a walkthrough at this particular location.
I'm not opposed to that boots.
Me too.
Yeah.
Do you think it would be valuable?
It's definitely, it's always definitely valuable as far as
Yeah.
that goes. I
Okay,
mean,
so,
you really can't, on a map, see, it's
or
what,
even overhead.
yeah, when you're walking it in. You'd see the little thing, I don't know how easy this one's gonna be to walk,
Mhm.
especially compared to, before. Cause I do know the area pretty well, but it's not as,
That particular parcel, if you will, although it's not a parcel, yeah. To gain entry to. So I think the thought is that we're not going to do it like we did the previous project with the public being involved. It would have to be a couple board members, the town engineer, and then, a couple more board members. So
So the issue is that if you have more than 3 board members, it constitutes a meeting and therefore the public wouldn't be allowed
Yeah.
to participate in that. If you do it with less than a quorum, then you can go
Yeah.
visit at your leisure.
three's,
Three is a quorum.
so 2 at a time.
2 at a time.
and it's not meant to exclude the public. It's just a really difficult site to include the public on because it's such a sloped, slippery.
And the property owner may have concerns too.
They
That's
do.
a lot of people mind property, so I certainly understand.
2 cars is hard just to pull right off. the edge of the
Yeah.
field.
Yeah.
There's kind of a field driveway right there. 2 cars can get in there, but if you had. 10, 20, whatever, it'd be almost impossible for you to be way off in the fields.
So consensus is that it's valuable to do a site visit. And but I will have to work on parties of or groups of people to and okay. The other thing, it's not on the agenda, but I was talking to Tim about it, and I think maybe it would be a good idea to get the pulse of the board at this point. Just to see where everyone's at with this project, what your concerns are. And I would think that whatever concerns we as a board have, I would take them back to the developer and say, this is where we're at. To let them maybe decide whether or not they want what they want to do. So not gonna put anybody on the spot, but does anybody want to weigh in on how they feel about this particular project at this point?
I don't have a problem with Ralph going at that point. I apprehensive about because of the slope of the hill and taking trees down. I keep going back to like Tully Farm Road with my slides and stuff, you know what I mean? And unless somebody can tell me that you can safely take trees down on a slope and not an after effect, I would really like to hear from somebody that knows more about that than myself. That's my.
Drainage is definitely my problem with it. It's always been a mess over there. And I have seen the pictures on 91. So right now I'm not really thrilled with the idea of it.
I'll go, I mean, I'm. For me, you know, I like the fact that it was trying not to use too much of the tillable farmland, but I haven't almost all the neighbors unanimously nearby are against it, and I myself can't go against the neighbors. If they can't be comfortable with it, I couldn't be, so I'm fine to not be for it, besides the drainage and the other issues, but I couldn't go against the neighbors with them being as strongly opposed as they are.
Yeah, I have a long list of concerns as well. I tried to use the same process as I did with Sweet Road and, you know, starting with the fact that this is a discretionary decision. It's not one which is criteria driven. The next question I always ask myself is it controversial? And obviously this one is very controversial. The drainage issue, I think, is one, I know it can be potentially mitigated, but having done drainage design before, it would be a monumental task. And it would, you know, a scenario under which even one more drop of water reaches Route 91 by virtue of this project, to me, would be unacceptable. And, you know, then there's other things that we talked about with Pivot, which have to do with just from a financial perspective, which I don't think I need to elaborate on here. I think other things like, you know, environmental benefits, from my perspective, when I think about environmental benefits, I think of a reduction in the carbon footprint. And it'd be one thing if there was a coal burning facility between Franklin Road and James, where this power is going to, those can be shut down by virtue of this, but there's not. So there's really no, from my perspective, environmental benefit to this that would sway me towards wanting to be in favor of it. And so for those reasons, you know, I would, at least at this point, not in favor of it.
Well, and to weigh in last, but maybe not least, for most of you who know me, you know that I favor renewable energy. But I think a lot of people in this room favor renewable energy. And I think this boils down to a matter of location. And at first blush, it might seem like a great location because it's going to be tucked into a wooded area. But I have said from the beginning, first contact I had with the developer, the drainage in that area is my issue. And I am not comfortable with the drainage. I was there last week. I saw the runoff from Franklin Road to Coleman Road, Old Coleman Hill to Sevier to on Route 91 at Fuller's. and what the damage was done. It wasn't all from the runoff up the hill. But the drainage in that area is horrific, and VR's crew got called in the day they weren't supposed to even be working and worked their tails off all day long to clean up the mess, and it was a mess from a rainstorm the day and night before that wasn't as significant as the one we saw in October of 2021. So I would be afraid to rely on a SWIP, quite honestly, that says that can be mitigated because it's such a difficult area of water flow and stormwater flow. So I thought that this would be a good thing to do, is to put everybody's concerns out there and maybe figure out how we want to proceed at this point. So Tim, I don't know if you want to weigh in at all, not on the project itself, but on,
Well,
What our
certainly
options are.
The board has concerns with drainage. It seems to be the largest concern, the biggest concern. The applicant should understand that. I think the applicant should be aware that at this point, it doesn't look like there is support for this type of project on this property. And they need to kind of have a sense that they're going through a process that, if it's a, no pun intended, but it's an uphill process that they may not want to pursue. So I think that should be spread on the record tonight in the minutes, and we can certainly have a conversation with, or maybe have a conversation with the applicant, explain the concerns that have been raised at public meeting in the town board. And then it's really going to be up to them how they want to proceed.
well, I might have a conversation with them, with another board member present. So. Since he was with me the last time, but I'm just, yeah, that would work. And since it is a discretionary call on the part of the board to entertain this or not, I'm just asking this because I don't know the answer. Even if they wanted to go forward, could the board say, we're not going to entertain it?
Well, our local law has a process in place for people to request a zone change, and for any property owner to request a zone change. It's not, if we have a specific local law for solar facilities that sets out that process. But it would require a local law, which is a legislative act. And that any legislative act in the town of Pompey, or in any town, or through the state legislature, or through Congress, is a discretionary act. So you can decide to pass a bill or not to pass a bill. So that's what the developer has to understand. And I'd be happy to speak with the developer. I don't think the developer has an attorney because I haven't talked to anybody, but I'd be happy to explain all of that to them. But our code does require a zone change for this overlay district. Zone change in the town of Pompey is a legislative act.
All right. I have a few more questions, but I think I'll save them for, I don't want to belabor this. I think we've got, I just want to make sure I don't miss stuff. But I will.
I just want to make one last comment. I don't want to beat a dead horse on this drainage thing, but one of the things I know that the applicant is hoping for, so to speak, is to mitigate the drainage problem. One of the implications of the mitigation is that they're going to be putting in massive detention ponds, which happen to be right where some of the solar panels are currently proposed. So it's almost going to have to be another application, because it's going to change the whole, which I don't know if they've thought about it. And just, again, I don't mean to beat this to death, but it's sort of ironic
That's a
that they're
good
hoping
point.
to mitigate our concerns, yet it's going to create secondary ones because it's going to push the whole project east.
So I think that is a legitimate concern to raise with the developer. I would suggest that the developer watch the town board meeting and get a sense of what, fortunately, we record our meetings, so they can see what the concerns are. They can literally see them and hear them.
They tell me that they did watch last month's meetings and heard from, like, listened to all of the public comments. So I think even though it wasn't on for a public hearing, there was probably some benefit beyond what we were thinking there would be. So that was a good thing. Okay, I guess I will report back, or Bill and I will report back, or Tim, you might get pulled into a conversation with them, next month. But for now, that will stay on the agenda. Okay, Delaney, I'm not gonna pronounce your last name because I'll get it, I'll butcher it, so I'm gonna let you pronounce it, but, Laney is here from the Pompey Hill Cemetery Association, which is in the newly formed board to oversee the Pompey Hill Community Cemetery. And has a request that she'd like to make of the board. So Laney, I will let you step up here to address us, and you can, everybody should have the proposal, but I made copies of the relevant pages. So.
Hi, I'm Lainey Amritanan. And Lainey is just.
That's why I couldn't pronounce.
And I'm the president of the Pompey Hill Cemetery Association. As some of you know, some of you may not know, in a nutshell, in November, the cemetery was going to be declared abandoned by the state. And basically what happens is, and correct me if I'm wrong, only obligation to maintain the cemetery would be the town has to mow it like 3 times a year, maybe 2 or 3 times a year. Other than that, nothing else. The cemetery just pretty much degrades over time. And 7 of us stepped forward and said we didn't want to see that happen in our town. This cemetery is 217 years old. It was started in 1806. The founders of this town, which were Revolutionary War soldiers, we have a bunch of them buried there. We have 121 soldiers that we found so far from the Revolutionary War up through, I think, Vietnam is the last war that we have. We have a lot of work ahead of us. The cemetery is in quite bad disrepair. And we are raising awareness through the community, and we've had amazing community support. We'll be doing a cleanup day on the 22nd in conjunction with the town's event. We will have a class on the 20th, a volunteer group that's coming in to teach us how to clean and restore some of the monuments safely so they're not destroyed, because these are very historic. As I said, these are 217-year-old stones, some of them. And then we're going to have on the 27th, which is Memorial Day weekend, we're going to have an observance at the cemetery at 10 a.m. and I'll be putting out more information on that. So we really want to raise awareness. We want the public behind us. We want to get the cemetery into the shape that it really should be in. Besides that, we also have 217-year-old records. We have 3 maps that plot out the cemetery. Each are slightly different than the others. We have no comprehensive mapping telling us where everyone is. I routinely get calls from people who are doing genealogy and would like to know where their ancestor is. I'm having to put on some nice white cotton gloves and look at early 1800s records that I don't want to keep touching. This is very historic documents. So amongst all the stuff that we need, what we'd like is some software, a software program that will get all of the cemetery onto the computer. It will let us know who is in the cemetery and where they are. Because right now we don't have that comprehensive list. There's a group of us that will walk. We're walking, every day with pads and pens and documenting where this is and, to try to figure out, the cemetery plan. What we'd like to do is get a software, program where we can put all of this into a software program so that we can, know where everyone's graves are, where we can know where the available graves are, where we can stop touching these historic records that, shouldn't be handled. Stephanie O'Neill is the secretary of the board. She has done a lot of really good research. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here tonight. She has done a lot of research on many different software programs. She has talked personally with every single company, and she's recommending the SIMS program. It's Cemetery Information Management Systems. They have 3 different levels. They have the light, the gold, and the platinum. At this point, just starting out, the light will be just fine. There's also a ton of add-ons, which we also don't need at this point. Because also with the cemetery being in a lot of disrepair, it really doesn't have any money. So we're starting from scratch on many different levels. The light program costs $1,300. And then $500 a year through the company. That is the lowest price, and we chose that for a couple different reasons. One is just starting from scratch. We feel that that's about all we can handle right now. Maybe in the future, we can get an upgrade. But at this point, that's about all we will need just to get all of this documented. And also because each level you go up, there's more money each year. And the board is looking at how much the board can afford each year. And right now, we want to make sure that we are being frugal with the donations that the community has given us and the very little money that we have on hand. And as I said, there's always options in the future if we want to upgrade the system. If we, one of our goals this year, and we have a laundry list, is to become more fiscally sound. So we feel that the 500 is something we could afford. So what we're asking for is the $1,300 for the software and the $500 for this first year's yearly plan.
You have no survey map of the cemetery?
Not that we found.
Because that's what we have in our survey that shows where everything, so you have not come across one.
It was 1806 when this was established. We have some rough ideas. We're still doing research, trying to find. And we may in the end up having it resurveyed. The Catholic side is newer, is a newer cemetery. than this one. It's still old, but it's not as old. So we have boxes of documents that we've come through and so far, of course, we could probably get it resurveyed to know just where our outer boundaries, but of course, that's going to cost us money too. And if we're going to spend money, as I said, we're pinching pennies because that's really what we have. We're trying to really make some wise decisions. We have grants that we're writing. We have, hopefully we're going to get some of those. We have the DAR that's helping. They're going to fund a garden. We have a flagpole that's been donated by a community member. We have a chapel that's from the 1800s on the property. We'd like to restore that to the original chapel and perhaps use it as educational or, maybe have some seating in there if people need to have that open every once in a while to the public. But we don't have a lot to work with. And so we'd like a survey, but at this point, we can't afford a survey. We just need the basics. We need it cleaned. We need to know where everybody is because we're still an active cemetery. There's 2 burials this month. So we still have plots that are available. We still are burying people. So even though we're 217 years old, we're still active.
Who was in charge of it before and what happened? I'm just trying to get the history of what happened, make me down to the state would say that it was.
The person who had it, there was a committee of one who was doing an amazing job and had been doing it for a long time. But really needed to retire because she felt that she had, done it long enough by herself and that she would want to retire. And so that was her goal. And
My understanding is that there used to be a board.
there was,
As time went on, board members passed away. And there was one board member left, and
Yeah.
for whatever reasons, the board didn't get. Didn't replace their members, and we ended up with one person who is in her, late 70s?
Oh.
Okay, well, I'm gonna be.
Basically,
And so
you're just restructuring a board now and trying to move forward. Something just kind of got it.
correct. Yeah. Correct.
That
We have
makes good
7
sense.
community members that have stepped forward to volunteer their time. And we have 2 other community members that are not on the board, but are doing an awful lot of work. Because everything is expired. Our taxes haven't been filed and we can't find tax records. I spent a grueling hour and a half on the phone with IRS. That was really something. The last records that I've been able to find where the records were filed the way they should with the IRS, with taxes, with keeping up the EIN number and the non-share, not-for-profit status and everything like that was from, I want to say 1971 or 72, and it was Mr. Bruce Way, whose signatures was on it.
Wow.
And that was the latest that I've been able to find where everything was actually in shape. Mr. Way had it in shape at that point.
You said you've been getting donations, so what's the plan for that? Because you have the perpetual fund that you can't touch.
Right, so we do have a perpetual fund that we cannot touch. A percentage of each lot sale and a percentage of each opening and closing of the grave must go by state law into that account. And it's not a lot, it's a few, just a small percentage. And we can't touch that by state law. We can't touch that perpetual fund. What we can touch is the interest on that. So that gives us a whopping $10 to $20 a year. The mowing the cemetery this year. So we have a small checking account. Mowing this year, the bids that we've gotten so far are $500 to $700 each time the cemetery is mowed. What money we have on hand, including the donations, isn't even going to get us through the summer if we have to pay somebody to mow. So we're, as I tell people, if you see me riding up 20 on this, on my little John Deere tractor toward the cemetery, just don't question it. We just don't know, we're working really hard. We're hoping that more volunteers step forward. Even if we could get people to say, hey, I'm available this week, I'll mow. And it's not even so much the mowing is the trimming. The stones are in really bad shape, but we've identified 3 different areas in which we can get money to have them restored. The veterans stones can be restored or replaced by the VA. There's also a state fund that will cover stones that are endangering people is really what it boils down to. And then there's another private fund that I found that I'm hoping to be able to tap into. I've also signed us up. There's a nationwide tour of historic cemeteries starting in, I want to say, Massachusetts. And it's going to be on PBS. And I've signed our cemetery up to try to bring awareness. I haven't heard whether we've been selected yet, but I'm kind of excited and hopeful.
Good for you.
But I'm just trying to raise awareness and trying to apply for as much money, free money as I can get, and trying to figure out what we can do with the little money that we have.
So you're asking,
I'm asking for $1,800, the $1,300, and the $500, which is the upfront, the $1,800 is the upfront cost. Just to get our cemetery to figure out where everyone is.
so I just want to, obviously, this is an unusual request, but Tim, do you want to weigh in on?
It hasn't, you're talking about for next year?
No, for now,
Now.
Have you budgeted?
we need to do a transfer. This is,
What's the legalities of this?
Are you I didn't hear you say whether you were a public cemetery corporation. As
So
defined under section 1502 of the not-for-profit law.
I do have an answer to that one.
Good.
We were a 501c3.
Okay, so that means you are a corporation.
Well, hold on. And that's the paperwork that we had as far back as Mr. Way was doing the paperwork and
Okay.
had it in, had things kept up. More recently, the tax code and the IRS and the state have changed it. There was a lot of not-for-profit cemeteries. So what they needed to do, they took everybody's 501c3 and transferred everyone over into a 501c13. And the paperwork would have been mailed to the cemetery boards. The cemetery boards filled it out, sent it back, and then it would just be an automatic transfer to get that. That paperwork was never filled out.
So
So
501c3 is just a designation by the IRS. That has
Correct.
nothing to do with the entity, the formation of the not-for-profit corporation.
I have the corporation
Well,
paperwork
if you have the
from
corporation,
1866.
well, I would like to see that.
Absolutely.
When you get a chance and
If you have an email, I'll email it to you.
well, I'll get it to you, but if you are a cemetery corporation.
Yes,
then the
yeah.
town board under section 165A of general municipal law, you can provide assistance to cemetery corporations that you desire. But I would suggest we would go.
well, let's get the articles of
Yes,
incorporation.
let me take a look at that, so sure we can.
Jim Pompo about a budget transfer. I think we were, well, I shouldn't say we, I thought this was, since it's a community cemetery, a good use of some of our ARPA money. It's not a lot taking out of the ARPA fund, but $1,800 out of 680,000 or whatever. So it just seemed like it would be a good fit. But we don't have the budget transfer to do tonight because our accountant is not here, but maybe you can get that paperwork to Tim and we can put it back on the agenda next month and get it finalized.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay.
The corporate papers are so cool. They're all handwritten in the big one.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Laney.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You'll get her by email.
I'll get her yeah. I'll connect it to you. So next on the agenda is a presentation from our Historical Society President Ann Shelley, and I think I saw Ruth here, but she's small, so she's hard to see. Where are you? Oh, there she is. So there's been a request from a former town resident who now lives in Texas, who is an author, to move his writing studio. But they want to put it on
Several copies. So it's out, and I sent the Bible to you. In case you needed to make more copies.
one down to.
Please, Tim.
All right.
Oh, but you're.
People. Okay, Ann. Good evening. Thank you for giving us time to talk about this proposal. Jerry Ann Till, for those of you who don't know, is a regional author. He has specialized in a book series about Pompey. He grew up in the Delphi Falls area, post-World War II. So he has several notable books and series of books about Pompey and the people living in it, many of whom are still here, many of the families who are still here. He has written broadly in other areas as well. So this issue that we're bringing to you now has a combination of historical aspects to it. It is about a native son, if you will, who has made good in the literary world, but it is also about Pompey history as he has recorded it during the post-World War II era. So Jerry has proposed, and I gave you all a picture of it, that his writing studio come to the Pompey Historical Society campus. You have the dimensions there. I believe it's 9 by 12 and 12 feet high. For those of you who don't know, the White Rock, which is prominent in where the boys played as they were growing up, is on our campus now. That was the installation of that was celebrated last year. And Jerry came and gave a nice presentation about his time with his growing up years with the White Rock. So he has asked if he could donate his writing studio to us. It would be furnished with the items that are in it now. There are a couple of writing desks, some chairs, some lamps, etc. But as you can tell, 9 by 12, this is a very small building, very small. So we have no place to put it on the parcel that is Pompey Historical Museum property. As we had to do with the pole barn, much of the pole barn, of course, is on your property. And so we propose that if we were to take this building on donation and use it as exhibit space, it would go between the pole barn, east of the pole barn, but well west of the schoolhouse and the outhouses, closer to where the White Rock is now. Ruth and I measured it this afternoon. There would be about 10 feet of mowing space behind it, and it would be well away from anything on the other 3 sides of it. So the mowing would not represent an issue, except that it would be additional something for the town mowers to go around.
A little less lawn to mow.
That's right. Well, there's that, isn't there? Okay, all right. Should have mentioned that. So part of our decision about taking this really depends on whether or not the town is willing to give us permission to site the building on town property. And that is the request that you see in front of you tonight. I am here with Ruth to answer whatever questions you might have about it and to help you understand where we are in our thinking. We have not told Jerry yes. We have indicated our interest and said, sure, it sounds like a good idea, but we have to be practical. Jerry has already agreed to pay all the expenses relative to the move and the installation. I am thinking that the installation may need to include electricity to the building, because I'm not sure what our insurance company is going to say about our need to alarm it, et cetera, et cetera. So I put that in there as a possibility, but we would not be running water to it. We would not be heating it. It would be for exhibit purposes only, with a lot of additional exhibits that Ruth has already thought about relative to. Jerry talks a lot in his book about the farming community and about the educational system that he experienced. So we see a lot of potential for additional exhibits relative to the teaching and the farming. So there are additional tangents off this that would be make good programs and exhibits. So we like it for that idea, but I am concerned about the practical expenses. So Jerry, in addition to the moving, the installation, setup, that kind of thing, Jerry has agreed to provide funds for a maintenance fund. We already have one for the Orin Schoolhouse, and we have one for the maintenance of the museum buildings. So this would be akin to that, where we would invest it as we have our other two accounts, and it would be available for capital improvements like roofing, painting, all of that kind of stuff. And then we pull from it as we need to do the maintenance. I am also, as I noted in the notes, if you are amenable to this, because if you're not amenable to this, that's the deal breaker right there. But if you are, then we will start to approach our insurance company, and they will want to know surely where this is going to be cited, which is one of the reasons why the dominoes are falling in this order. Then I would approach them about liability insurance, insurance on the building, insurance on the contents, and what stipulations they would have about that. And one of them I'm thinking is they could possibly require that it be alarmed, as the schoolhouse is and the museum building itself.
It's in Texas right now,
Correct.
correct? So he's gonna move it up here?
Is it in Texas or is it on Long?
Oh,
I don't know. I assumed it was in Texas. I assumed that's where he was doing his writing.
well, how do you think it's in Long Island, Ruth?
Long Island.
Okay.
Why do you think that?
Oh, he spends the summers and he stamps it.
Oh,
Well,
um,
okay, I stand corrected.
so is this picture like an accurate depiction of the condition it's in? I mean, isn't it
Yes.
this condition?
Yes, it's in good.
It's in good condition.
Right.
And it needs to be, he has it on a wooden frame, you said, but it needs to be on like a concrete slab.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking.
Well, and that is something we should discuss relative to what your needs would be. My concern, when I saw that
Yeah.
pallet looking structure, I thought, well, how could it not tip over? I mean, isn't it going to sink unevenly but I don't know anything about that. So if you were to decide this was a go and you want to set some conditions on the installation, I think that is a perfectly reasonable way to approach this.
I haven't had that. This is what he has it on right now. Not sure that's. Saying that's a.
The historical value of this to the town of Pompey is simply because he's a writer that wrote about the town.
Yeah.
And he wrote the books in this building.
The Pompey Howell books.
Correct.
Was that studio ever here?
No,
So how old would this studio be then?
oh, it's not that old.
It's within Jerry Antill's adult lifetime, so it can't be more than.
Well, he's-
No,
So
in
it's
terms of
not-
being an historical building, it is not. It is simply the place where he wrote the books.
So. Obviously, you and I have talked about this before coming here, but so you mentioned your mission. The and it fits, does it fit within the?
Absolutely. It fits within our mission is to gather and disseminate information about all things Pompey relative to history, culture, its citizens, all of that. And this fits well within that. It's just that we're looking at some current history in my mind. His books are fairly recent. I think the first one was 2011, if I'm not mistaken. So, but the novelty of it at the time was people felt like they were reading a little bit of a diary or reading something about themselves. As I understand from Ruth, the phones were
But if
buzzing
you
because people
ever
were saying,
read them,
did you see
will
what Antil
recognize all the local farm family names. And they all show
That's so and so, so and so.
which I was surprised. They came from out of state and all over the place. 20-some guys showed up. Mary didn't, but the guys were all here.
So the question I asked you personally, but I'm just concerned about the look of this building and if it will fit within the historic look that is.
Well, it's
there.
white and everything's white over there in that area.
So it's gray.
Well.
And let me propose a counter argument.
I'm just saying, I'm not, I look over there and I see all white
Right.
and it's all.
Let me just counter that.
Yeah.
And that is, we're a historical society and history covers many eras, many time periods. So I'm not really concerned that this building looks relatively new. I mean, if you compared it to the Jerome rooms in the pole barn, you'd say, well, wait a minute, this is a modern building. And in effect, in that sense, it is. It's not 1815, the way the Jerome rooms are, but it is a piece of Pompey history. Because here is a man who has taken almost a folklore, a folk story, an oral tradition, if you will, and disseminated it broadly. I mean, his books were distributed to the military. They were distributed to several school district wide. So people have a glimpse of Pompey history from the late 40s and 50s. And in the future, 20, 30 years from now, we might consider this just, it's still an incredibly charming addition because this is where Jerry Antil wrote the Pompey Hill series.
I mean, to me, it looks like it's a chance for the Historical Society to get another little, basically something else to display more history without them having to pay much to do it. Is that really what this boils down to? I mean, and it is on the history because he's a writer and he's got stories and I'm just look at the whole thing. It's like, especially with a lot of it being on the farms, it's like kids nowadays have no, younger ones have no idea of the number of farms and where they were and what they were. And as very quickly, few remnants of them buildings end up coming down and disappearing. There's not going to be a lot of evidence of that left.
That's
You
right.
know, when you go 20, 30 years from now, you won't know that there were,
Right.
unless you go to the Historical Society, you won't know that there were all those farms around this place. So
That's correct.
it might be, I'm just trying to take the historical side of it. It's kind of a neat thing to have those things there. I mean, and it, if you're having to pay for it all, it probably would never happen, but it's a neat way to get it.
So when we consider that part of our mission, that we're not just grabbing stuff, from estate sales that are very ancient and old. We are also interested in being in the present to capture what we can capture now at reasonable, practical, realistic options for us. And Jerry seems willing to meet those conditions. So from that perspective, yes, we can grab a piece of current history on his nickel and have it here now. Correct.
And I do encourage you to read the Pompey Howell books. If you haven't read them, because you will really chuckle. And it is what life really was like. And I would spend my time calling my brother. Did you guys really do stuff like that in our end of the town? And sure enough, they were driving trucks without their licenses and going out at night.
So,
the Pompey Hollow Book Club.
Sit with us on whether or not we to use the town's property to place the museum.
I suspect our insurance company is going to want to know where it's situated.
Yeah.
And this is the other part I know. Now, we have precedent. They insured the pole barn and its contents, even though it was on your property. So I'm assuming that's not going to be an issue. But I know they're going to ask me where it's going to be situated.
Okay,
So I really want to be able to tell them that.
so the town is not being asked to fund it in any way. It's mostly just to locate it on
No,
the property.
no.
And it's not for an inside tour. It's going to simply be. There's no going inside of it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you said it was gonna be.
Exhibit. But we would allow people to, now, it's a 9 by 12 space from the outside, so I can't imagine this is like a faculty office in a college, that's a small space. So not too many people can go in there at one time. But yes, we would open the doors and allow people to walk in.
And you're gonna piggyback of like programming and educational things off of it.
It's no expense to the town.
No. It's just the location. And it's far enough away from the schoolhouse. That was my one concern, if it was gonna be too close to the schoolhouse to like.
Well, it's also not, you'll appreciate this, and it's not on the church foundation.
So, do we want to entertain, with
So
the,
technically, what you would be doing is making a motion to accept the donation. Because you are authorized to. Town law authorizes you to accept donations on behalf of the town, so that's what you would be doing. I would recommend you do it subject to legal review, because make sure that whatever is being donated, there's no expectation of it kept in some certain way by the town, or there is.
we're not gonna own it. It's just gonna be.
Well, it's going to be on your property, so you will own it.
So,
Yeah, if they're donating it to the town,
No,
No,
technically, he's not donating.
well, what is he doing then?
I think he's donating it to the Historical Society.
correct.
Because that takes.
Donate his writing studio to the Historical Society, but it's going to be on town property.
Yes.
Correct.
But it's probably technically on our 99-year lease property, maybe. You think?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, the pole barn, the Heritage Center we own,
Okay,
and that
And
building is
it's
on
on a
town property.
99-year lease.
I'm not familiar with any 99-year leases, so
I don't know if it goes over that far or not. Because.
Do you have the lease?
So that could be an extension to the 99-year lease.
Do we have a copy of that lease?
Does that change?
We
what our
probably
motion
would.
would-
Clerk has a copy.
I would make.
Okay.
the motion would be to
Allow
allow the Historical Society to place a writing studio on town property pursuant to a lease that they've already entered into.
It would be the easiest way out.
I'll second it.
Jim made a motion and second it. We've had enough discussion. I think.
Yeah,
That's nothing. I just mean, I think, I don't know if we need any more discussion.
and whenever I get good hands after therapy, hopefully, I'll get the display done.
Okay. Yes. So all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Okay, thank you. And we will keep you
Thanks for that.
posted, because this is the first hurdle. Now we have to work out the other practical
The other
details.
system goes.
Thank you.
You know.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, Nikki. Oh, okay, Nikki. You're up.
Yep, if boards had the chance to review, I'm looking for a motion to accept it's actually March 20th.
I know, that was the original date. I would make a motion to accept the town clerk's meeting minutes, March 2020. Bill seconded it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Looking for a motion for the payment of bills, if everyone's had the chance to review the vouchers.
I'll make the motion to approve the.
I'll second. Diana seconded. Everybody good?
Aye.
Didn't ask for that.
And last
All
one
those
is
in favor? Wait a minute. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
birthday event. There's some posters that are posted around town. They're up here, they're on our website. There's one by the door, there's one on my window, there's one at the highway garage. Pompey Mall, post office, on our website. It's on Facebook, our town Facebook page. If you have a chance, check out the website, all the details of what's going to be offered, what to bring. It's all listed. We just ask if you can share the event. It's a great community event. It's on Saturday, April 22nd from 9 to noon. The highway department, they're going to have an open house that day, so you guys will be open. Yeah, all the details are on our website.
Thanks, Nikki. And it does overlap with the cleanup of the cemetery, but I say do both. You can.
If you
They're
can.
both Great, both good events. Spend the day helping clean our community.
That's all I had to say.
Thanks, Nikki.
Yep.
I don't know if you have anything. First you had
I got it.
snow and then you
Yeah.
had rain.
Yes, lots of. I do want to update that I got a hold of Joe's all for
Oh, yeah.
the roof. We're gonna start collecting material. And as soon as they get it all in, they'll call us, get a schedule.
Okay.
So if we can get that done like midsummer, I'm guessing. The new 10-wheeler has been officially ordered and hopefully you should see that by the end of the year. Our mechanic is doing fantastic. He's got lots of work to do and he's trying to catch us up a little bit, so we're getting ahead of that. And then other than that, we're ditching. Starting to change culverts, sweeping, so we're getting there.
Okay.
This little storm set us behind a little
Yeah.
bit, but
Yes, it did. Set a lot of people behind that thing.
yep.
So, including me. In my basement. The codes officer report, is, the board has had a chance to look at it. I just note that we don't have a codes officer here to say anything. There's been 5 permits issued in the month of March. There've been 3, certificates of completion issued in the month of March. And there's been a stop work order issued, but over on Hartsfield Place, except that the owner has been working with the codes officer to bring that back into compliance. And there's also been a notice of a violation sent to an address in Stephanie Drive with a shed that has been placed too close to the road. So codes office. Everybody good with that? There's also details of what I just described attached to that monthly report. Tim?
Yes, 2 items. Sent to the board a work permit form that you should have when you visit the right of way. Apparently, we don't have one and we haven't had one, so this was kind of came to the light in terms of Verizon, who is working with the county to put in data lines to improve access to internet data in some of the southern towns, some of the rural towns. And Verizon and I have been working back and forth on an agreement to enter our right of ways so that they can put the data lines in. And this is what I came up with. I would. Questions about the work permit form. There were some changes I needed to make in terms of it being called a public works. It's actually highway department, but I borrowed this from another town that I used. So it's a public works instead of highway department. But I made those changes and I will get them to Nikki and VR tomorrow. But again, this was really related to that discussion I had with Verizon.
Did you? I don't, maybe I'm missing it. You said something about the fee for this permit?
$500 fee.
Oh, all right. Why am I not seeing that?
It's on the front page. It's on the actual first page of the application.
Oh, duh. Okay.
There was some discussion about a franchise fee and whether, because generally we get franchise fees when was in, but because this is just data line, it's not a video line, there is no franchise fee. Several of the towns are doing this. So again, it's a larger amount that the county is making to provide data to rural areas of the county.
So they have to apply, highway has to, is this codes or highway? Highway has to.
Sign off on it, then they have to let the highway department know where they're gonna be working, when they're gonna be working, they're going to have to provide us with insurance that shows that the town is going to be insured from the work being done in our right of way, when the judge is gonna indemnify us for what happens to that right of way, and then we have to, once they disturb our property, they're gonna have to seed it and bring it back to normal condition.
How much it's involved? I mean, town roads, all the town roads. Okay.
So
What do you need from us?
I need a motion to approve the
Permit.
work permit that has been proposed. It's a general work permit, but in this case, it'll be used specifically for Verizon, who will begin the work next month, I think, if we can get this done tonight.
And are you good with this? What, except for the couple changes? that
Yeah.
Okay. So I would make, improve the highway work permit that, is drafted that, that has been approved by, our highway superintendent, be used.
I just got one question for Tim. Does this include driveway repair?
This does not include driveway repair, but we can certainly make it apply to driveway repair as long. But I'm assuming when you say driveway repair, you mean when somebody is connecting their driveway to one of our roads and they, yes, we can certainly make it available for that also.
So is that something that will be added into this or it's already?
No, it's not covered. This is for
Is that for like
wires and
putting in a
pipes.
driveway or just fixing one?
It says,
Yeah, no, this is just for wires and pipes in our right of way.
So if they were just, if the driveway was disturbed because of the work they were doing, then they would have to make it
Right.
repair.
We are talking about specifically somebody who wants to put in a driveway. And the impact of that driveway on our town road. I can modify this to,
I don't think you need to, because they already pay for a permit,
okay,
you know what I mean?
so they already get permits for this.
Yes, they do, for the driveways,
Okay,
that's a
all
separate.
right, well, then that's a separate document.
Yes, okay.
We wouldn't need insurance because they're working on their property.
Right,
So I would make that motion to approve this permit application. I'll second that. And second, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
The next item is the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Holly to participate in the swim program. I see that's under today's items also, but I have reviewed the contract, the intermunicipal agreement between the town of Tully and the town of Pompey. I'm okay with it. We did change the amount.
Oh, we did.
$75 to $100, yes. I got it. I sent it to you today.
Oh, okay, because I didn't see it and I was gonna say we would need to do that subject to confirming that.
It is it's $100. $100 per student. So somebody wanted to make a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement and authorize the supervisor to sign that. I'll make a motion.
Intermunicipal agreement for the supervisor to sign it.
There you go. Bill seconded, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye, opposed. Motion carried.
That's all for me.
Okay. And nobody, no town council has anything to add to the that I heard from. So the only thing I wanted to bring up about the swim program is for Pompey residents, registration opens on May 1st, and it is being done on if you go onto the website, all the information is there. But it's being done through activate.com or something like that. I could get it wrong, but that's where you go to register, and it is first come, first served. The town is covering since we are participating with Tully, we are now covering the cost for our participants. Unfortunately, it's limited to 50 kids. So first come, first served.
When does it start?
Not telling you again, James, because you're gonna rush to the front of the line. First.
Okay. But I also wanted to let you know, we are being proactive about trying to get back to Cass College. So I reached out to Kurt Wheeler, who is the Village of Casanova mayor. A couple, maybe just last week. And in any event, expressing to him, and he is on a committee that has been formed to consider what to do with Cass College. So I explained to him, I figured he already knew, we really want to come back there. That we've got an alternative this year, but it's not very satisfactory because it's limited and we're down to only 50 kids in the program and we had 242 last year. And I reiterated all of this, all of that to him, that if there is any possibility that the town can come back there, we want to. I guess the Y has looked at the athletic facility, and my concern with that is if the Y is in there, they're gonna charge you a fortune for a few swim lessons. So I'm hoping they're not that interested, but I'm hoping somebody takes it on. I think that the state police are going to use it as a training facility. They're gonna lease it for a bit. But other than that, there are no plans that have taken shape yet, and I'm gonna keep our fingers in I'm just gonna keep bugging them about our interest so that it doesn't go away. I shared that did I share it with all the board or just
Yeah.
James?
No, you didn't, Nate. Thank you.
Everybody, yeah, no, I don't think we want to sit on this. We can't okay, we've got this year taken care of and then not think about it. They need to know, that committee needs to know that we have an interest. My concern is, and I said this, we will certainly keep you and the many others like FM schools, I don't know where they came from, who are interested in the pool post. We are doing our best to shape the outcome of the process, but don't have $20 million to buy the campus because one of the rumors going around was that the village was going to buy the facility, and that's not true. But I'm a little bit worried about others that might come in now that it's sort of an open field. So we just need to keep being the squeaky wheel.
And man, we have to have a swim team that practiced out of there regularly.
Okay, so then they might not compete. They might not be. So that's good. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say about the swim program. I did redo the draft travel policy to include language about any town personnel that attends a conference training that the town pays for and then, or no, signs up for one that the town pays for and then doesn't go, is required to reimburse the town. So I did, that's on the bottom of the first page and into the second page. And the highlighted is, again, just from the last time, for the most part, the same things I highlighted before. There is some question about whether or not we should have a lodging limitation where if you're within a certain distance of the town, that lodging will not be covered by the town hall. And we set that at 90 miles. I don't know if we want to reconsider that or not, but that was, I was asked about that today. So I don't know what we're wanting to pass up. Technically, we're not even supposed to be approving travel to anything unless we have a policy in place, is what the Association of Towns does. I don't know if that, I think it's, well, actually, not Association of Towns, State Comptroller's Office, which is more important. Please them.
Did we want to have discussion about the mile thing, just to see what?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
I didn't, I know it was. You know,
Where is that?
what was one of the reasons for having it down was if there was multiple day things, and then there's like social time this is what I've kind of heard, if there was social time in the evening after the meetings were done, that it made sense to allow lodging because there was kind of what was the word for it? Networking outside of the meeting time at night, so lodging might make sense in them situations. Even if it was closer than 90 miles, is that one of the arguments or thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, and I don't think I think that's true, that there's a lot of networking that goes on at conferences and it's a great place to get contacts and people that will help you going forward. The one thing I will say about that is you can also network during the day significantly, lunches and breakfasts and breaks and everything. After hours, I get it. It is a time when you can just relax and chill. I don't know if I think we have to balance that with if you,
Lodging is cheap,
and if it's local,
right?
there's no reason, I mean, you drive home. It just doesn't,
Yep.
so I don't know how local we want to make it.
Right, that's, I just wanted to put it out there.
90 mile, if it's a multi-day, I mean, that's 3 hours minimum travel each day if it's a multi-day, so that's a lot of driving. Versus like a 1-day event.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe we wanna, I don't know, make it 60 or no lodging unless it's a multi-day event. I don't know how to. I don't know, 90 miles, an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes one way, so. And then come back and then turn around, go back, and then. That would be a big deterrent of me even wanting to go to
True.
something that could be. potentially
The number I just threw in there, I will say that, and I'm not married to that number. But that having worked in government for my entire career,
Mhm.
that every municipality has a limit on lodging, on how. How close, like if it's literally in your backyard, that they're not gonna, they won't pay for lodging.
I agree with that.
And I think that makes good financial sense. So do you want to change the number to something that you think is like less burdensome, like 60 miles or an hour, within an hour's drive, 60?
It's 60, it's an hour each way.
Okay. So other than that, any? Okay, so does anyone want to make a motion to pass or accept this as our town travel policy?
I'll make a motion to adopt this as a travel policy. Expense reimbursement policy.
Bill seconds it. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll take the draft off of this and make it a final version, and give it to Nikki, so. So all of you have a resolution that we drafted for participation in the stormwater coalition, which we've participated in, and it's very beneficial to us as an MS4 district participate in it. And as a matter of fact, we had the bill for the coalition fee and our payment of bills or our vouchers this time. So it would be with the understanding that John Dunkel, our town engineer, would represent us coalition.
I make a motion, we accept this resolution. Good to have John Dunkel stand as our one more other
As a representative,
representative.
that we participate in the full coalition. Yeah. Okay. Any second?
I'll second it.
Ian seconds it. Discussion, anyone? All those in favor? Aye, opposed. That motion is carried. And the last thing, at least, is we got a letter of proposal from Arcadis, from Steve Snell, to do the landfill monitoring again this year. The price did not change from last year. Thank you, Steve. And I just need authorization to sign the agreement.
For authorization, to sign the agreement, for the landfill monitoring with Arcadius.
Bill seconds it. Any discussion? You have a chance to look at it? Everybody? Yes, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. That motion is carried. Vicki, I'm gonna have a few things for you.
Okay.
Okay. Just gonna find this group of rules of procedure that I read at the beginning. And ask you all to adhere to them. Tim's got the list.
First person is Richard Margina.
I'm Richard Margino.
Where do you live?
I live on Hennebury Road, 3413 Hennebury Road. So I came to the board meeting last week. Last month to express my grave concern about the industrial solar that you guys are proposing on Sweet Road, which is within about a half-mile radius to my house, and also the concern about the Frank Long solar, which is about a little bit more than a mile from my house. So one of the major concerns was the possible long-term effects that we really don't know about. Radiation, the amount of electricity going through the solar panel complex that could affect everybody. Another major concern was, Sweet Road's there's a lot of traffic on Sweet Road as far as cars driving fast. Large tractor trailers, propane trucks, oil trucks. As you all know, we get black ice, we have inclement weather. God forbid one of these trucks hits black ice, goes off-road. Even if the solar panel complex is far away from the road, one of these trucks could hit the solar panel complex. And it could be a grave disaster for everybody. It could be the next East Palestine, Ohio, which I'm sure you watch the news. People put their dogs outside for 20 minutes and they drop dead just because of the toxic fumes coming from the train derailment. It could be the same thing here. So different circumstances, but it could be very similar if something like that, God forbid, would have happened. And we really don't know the long-term health effects 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Some people might not be here in 10, 20 years. I'm in my late 30s. I'm gonna be here probably 50, 60 years, raise my family. I love this town. I love Pompey. We moved here for the views, for the peace and quiet. The nature, the scenery, and it's very concerning to have these big solar panel complexes that you guys are proposing. My biggest thing is, I understand everybody wants to save the environment. That's great. However, there's a lot of risk involved with this solar panel. And last month when I came here, I expressed my opposition. Tensions were a little bit high between everybody here last month. And Christmas, you did say after I spoke on live recorded Zoom that you said that I was nuts. And, you really don't know me to make that comment. And, I work really hard to provide for my family, pay a lot of money in property taxes. I'm a hardworking taxpayer. And I just feel that you make that comment.
I don't think we're supposed to address board members.
And I understand. However, what's really nuts is the solar panel complex. You guys are pushing some agenda that can have a lot of serious consequences for generations to come. My daughter, my grandchildren in the future. We all have to live with that. What could really happen? We don't know about these long-term health effects. And not to mention, it's not fair to any of the neighbors. They have to look at that as well. So that's my main concern. And, it is what it is. I'm just a concerned resident, a concerned taxpayer. The public has a right to speak about everything, about their concerns. Thank you.
Next is Jane Hodgman. Get it right one of these days.
Yeah. Dave Hudcamer, Kinder Lane. First of all, I want to thank the board for sharing your concerns with us as to what's going on in the Franklin Solar. My real question today is, the environmental committee met last week. I tried to Zoom the meeting. Is it open to the public or not? Because I wasn't able to link into it. I don't know. So I thought,
The Zoom link.
yes, so I didn't know.
Back there.
Anybody else have an issue with that?
Couldn't get into the controls. So the meeting wasn't broadcast.
Okay,
Apologize.
okay, that was my big question today. Thank you.
To answer your question, the meeting is open to the public.
Okay.
All the go. Any
I thought
meeting.
maybe I was just muted. Shut up.
Tom Byrne. 7099 Franklin Road.
Well, you know, Tom Byrne and we lived on Broadfield for 15 years and we're in the Whitney farmhouse for 8 years now. You know, it's been a very interesting process. Like 2 months ago, I didn't know anything about solar panels at all until I heard they were going, you know, right across the street from my house, basically. And a lot of benefits of this process. You know, I understand I can go through this whole process, and after hearing the sentiments of the board tonight, I won't give all the details. I had this one letter I found fascinating, but the one that, well, I guess the one couple of things I had on was this agriculture markets letter that if you go on the town website, I had no trouble finding it. I realized it's on its own tab. It's not the Project Ab tab. It actually says Department of Ag and Markets.
And Tom, that's because it came separate. It's not part of the application, but every
Oh, I
time something
see.
comes in, we'll add the document to the.
And I don't even talk about this drainage thing a zillion times, but it's just, there was one couple paragraphs in there. Every time I read the letter, the more fascinating I found it, but the one key thing was right here, the DEC. DEC indicated the proposed clearing of the selected project site would impact forest connectivity, habitat availability, and carbon sequestration due to its location, one of the largest forest blocks in the area. The DEC recommended that the project site be adjusted to limit the impact on the forested area. So they're saying you need to move the proposed site. You know, it's a very short letter, but then right down below, the commissioner of agriculture markets says right in there, based on the relevant information before me, he doesn't see a problem with this project. You know, and it says right below it. They responded to D saying that there's no alternate sites on that piece of property because of the farmland and the slopes and all that. They can't move this. I think someone else mentioned that earlier. Even if you put you can't move this thing up the hill. So, I mean, I think that's a key thing, you know, and aside from, I respectfully, I really was impressed with how the board, I mean, you know, I did email somebody that I think you do have the people's, you know, the town's benefit at heart, you know, the best interest of the town. And I understand you got to go through these processes, but it seems like the solar thing is going so fast that we're not ready for all these companies trying to come in from different areas and just trying to make money. The one thing I didn't understand with this letter, it talks about releasing public funds right in the first paragraph for the advance of public funds for the construction of it. So does agriculture markets fund them, release the money for this? Or
It would be nicer than they're talking about. I don't know. I honestly don't have the letter in front of me anymore, but.
Oh, okay, well.
No, it's okay. But it is very.
Releasing the public funds.
It certainly wouldn't be the town of Pownell.
I mean,
So it's going to be some other entity if there's probably subsidies for.
well, it's NYSERDA. It's
Yeah, probably
NYSERDA.
NYSERDA.
It's incentives. It's the
Yeah.
government incentives to go renewable energy. I'm sure that's what that's talking about, but
Yeah.
we just received the letter. We didn't write it, so trying to figure out what it really means is, I
I'm
hear.
very pleased to hear, you know, sounds like you're really trying to do the right thing here and go through the whole process and all that. I get it, you know, and so thank you for your time there.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You know what, I didn't mention, and I just will quickly, when I was down, Margie, at your house, with the DOT, the other day, I have put in a request that they become involved in this project as far as like whether or not they feel that there is an impact.
I asked them if they knew about it and they said they didn't know.
The crew doesn't,
Right.
but
But I even talked to the supervisor. She didn't know.
no, and it's the engineer in their department.
The last person on the list is Deborah Grenier. 2010 Cemetery Road.
I wanted to ask about the storm water on 91. I see that it happened again last week. I saw some DOT vehicles on Friday. That's a state road, I understand. Renee, or board? Okay, what can our town do to help the situation if the state isn't gonna fix it? Is there any ARPA money that we could, for infrastructure, fixing that road? It's a well-traveled road and it's affecting a lot of traffic.
I
People in
don't
and
think you
out.
understand then, Deb, that it's a state road. We have no authority over it. We have no authority over it. And I think Mrs. Fuller she understands that. She knows that we work very hard to, at least we call, we communicate, we contact. They are interested in bringing an engineer, an environmental engineer out to look at the area. So again, the squeaky wheel gets a little bit of oil. So, but we have no authority over that road. So
Is it the assemblyman or with the assemblyman, does he get involved? Our state assemblyman? That's something he could help with?
Your state representative has funds the New York State Department of Transportation budget. So yes, it would be your state elected representative.
Is that something we could, I mean, maybe the board, entertain the idea of John Melendez is our new assemblyman? Possibly getting together, meeting with him? She's a senator, but our assemblyman is John Melendez. She's a senator. So I'm just hoping that something can be done because it does affect a lot of traffic and, you know, in and out of County. And also, I'm glad you addressed the decorum issue. I think it should go both ways. It should be also the town board members being respectful of people at the meeting, residents of town.
Everybody. All this.
Anything on?
Let me just check here. It's regarding the cemetery. From Jay Shoemaker, Waterville.
Oh, Schoonmaker. I know they have a cemetery over there.
Please be aware that Pompey Hill Cemetery is not unique in the needs of the town's historical cemeteries. Had trouble trying to get to the chat window.
Yeah, and Jim and Joanne, I fully expected that you would weigh in. Because they're part of the Waterville Cemetery Association.
That is all I have.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
I didn't make it.
Oh, Bill made it. Chris seconded. All in favor?
Adjourn.